Hard to get up on
Good,
here and walk and find you.
good evening, Francesca Nunez from No Longer Silence. Good evening. As I always start my topic, we're going to talk about domestic violence. When you lose a child in a domestic violence dispute, I always start for a poem, and thank God he put it in my spirit today. And I'll start with Why Doesn't She Leave? It's the name of the poem. Because he has her so brainwashed that it's all her fault and that she's no good to anyone and no one will want her or leave her, or there's no way she can possibly make it on her own. Why doesn't she leave? Because she thinks that if she just tries harder and if she's a little bit of a better wife and a better mom, that maybe he would be happy with her and he wouldn't get so angry with her. And maybe he would be the same sweet, charming man that he was when she first met him. Why doesn't she leave? Because he has her convinced that if she tries, he would hurt her or kill her or her family, because he has threatened her to tell the judge that she is a bad mom and would take her away from her kids and she would never see them again. Because he has taken away her money and convinced her that she's no good for no job, no qualities to make it on her own financially. She will always need him. More people are concerned why women stay in abusive relationships than why men abusing women. Unless you've been in an abusive relationship, people have no idea how hard it is to escape. Abusers are able to fool those outside the home because they usually only abuse those inside the home. They need your support. They need your love. They don't need your judgment. Sometimes when you're in a relationship, you are judged as to why it took so long. Sometimes we stay because of the kids. And like the poem says, we get threatened by the individual by saying that he's going to kill you, the kids, and, hurt your family. Sometimes they say not to believe that, but sometimes you have to believe it because it does happen. It happened to me. Unfortunately, it happened to me, and I realized the importance of communication and the importance to get out and know your worth, that you're not supposed to be in a relationship that long. In this day and age, we have so much resources now, and I'm thankful that, I educate myself, and I'm looking more and more to get women and men out of the relationship. And also, I have to say, we have our youth that think that, when my boyfriend tells me to dress a certain way, I don't want you to hang out with this girl. I don't like her. They tend to think that's love. That is not love. That is controlling. And the youth is very harder to, to communicate with them because they have to, unfortunately, I have to say it, they have to learn the hard way. As adults, we stay in a relationship because of the kids. And we're harming the kids in an awful way. As I was reading and looking, I saw the outcome of children exposed to violence. They catch a lot of depression, anxiety. They do get post-traumatic stress disorder. They isolate themselves, the shame, the fear, guilty, low self-esteem happens a lot. They don't function in school when they see these things going on in the home because the parents usually are more focused in the arguments than, trying to make the child understand why mom and dad don't get along, why dad slapped me or why mom slapped him. It's hard. I don't want to go and say it's ego. I don't want to say it's ego. I'm far from perfect. I'm trying to understand through different situations that I took on a case now, and that's how I'm going to call it. I took on a case now where I did say last week she had a car and the individual vandalized it. She got a rental and the individual vandalized it. And here she had to take her 16-month-old baby to the daycare and her child to preschool and was unable to do this because the individual is stalking her. We came to the conclusion he has mental health issues and where he thinks she's sleeping around with the landlord. And I've been helping her a lot. Her concern now is getting out, The individual is not going to change. She's no longer working. She's isolated in the home now where her parents have took the role to take the kids, to the daycare and school because she's not able to do it because she doesn't have a vehicle. When we suggest, and I say commonly, I'm going to mention women, when we suggest women in that position where they feel there's no outlet, I speak to this young lady every single day for like 2 hours where she got to the point that thinking going back to him would be the solution because she tells me, what should I do? What you think? And I said, listen, honey, he's been doing this, and I'm not one to break up relationships. I'm not one to tell anybody don't go back to the individual. Though he's been vandalizing her home, cars, and stuff like that, making her life impossible, her concern is the safety of her children. And this week when we spoke, she told me he just has mental issues. He's just been verbally, abusive over the phone and vandalizing anything of mine, of my belongings. Should I go back to him? I couldn't tell her yes because I said, listen, my concern is you have a 16-month-old baby and a 1-year-old. And though he's not physically hitting you, but he is vandalizing your home when you're not there. Right now you don't have a vehicle. You don't have a vehicle to transport yourself here and there. I'm trying to get her relocated so he doesn't know where she lives at now. I'm trying to get her relocated. But I told her going back to him is not going to be the solution. It's just going to be an onset problem where if he has mental health, which is not being addressed with medication or counseling, one day he's going to get up and hurt you and them children, and he's just going to flip out. And we just can't say he has mental health issues. I can talk him through it and out of it, So this week he basically called her and said, let's fix it. I'm sorry. And I told her, I can't tell you to go back to him. That has to be your judgment. But after everything we spoke in almost every day, it seemed like this individual is not going to change. Though he's verbally, being verbally abusive and vandalizing your stuff, her word was, I want peace. And if the peace I'm going to get it by going back to him and trying to see if he's going to change, that's what I want. And I told her that's not the peace you're really going to get because you're going on his side to calm him down, have a home setting, and making him feel good. But at the same time, you can't tell me you're not going to have the anxiety, those thoughts in your head when you're sleeping when he flips out. Because I told her mental health is real. He doesn't want to get help, and he doesn't want to go on medication. And he's always thinking, like when the phone rings, it was an issue that she was talking to a guy. I said, if you move him back and your phone rings, he thinks you're talking to the guy. If someone knocks on the door, he's going to think, it's the landlord, the super coming, to fix something. But in reality, he's going to think it's coming to see you. So those are things that I put out there to her. And I told her, I said, your mind is in the right place because I know you want peace. Been there, done that. There were so many times I left my relationship, and I told her, if I tell you my testimony, how many times I tried to get out, it wasn't the way it was supposed to be. It was never talking. I said, I have surgeries. I said, the man has physically hurt me apart from verbal. And when I told her everything this individual did to me, and trying to leave, I told her, trying to leave, he would grab me by my hair, push me back in. You ain't going nowhere. I'm going to kill you and the kids. That's what brought fear, and I had to live through that experience all the time, sleeping, going into the room to see if the kids were okay, making sure he was asleep, and I would not sleep because I was not at peace. And I told her, I don't want that for you. And I said, and I don't want nothing happening to the kids. So we're still talking. Her anxieties are still on an all-time high, whether she takes this individual back. So he basically doesn't do the stuff that he's doing. And I said, that's a no, but you do what you think is best. But when you have children in the household that are under 3, I have a concern. And if he has mental issues, I have a concern. And I have to say this, she lives in Hasbrook Heights. She has called the cops several times, and the cops always say, if he's on the premises, we can arrest him. She has an active restraining order. He was not served because he lives in New York, but he comes to New York to Hasbrook Heights to do what he's going to do and jumps back and goes to New York. So I told her, I was like, just be very mindful, be very careful. She does speak to me in an advocacy line where they say, take it one step at a time. There's not that much we can do, but you're doing the right thing by calling the cops. You can call the cops for so much, but thank God I've been on the phone with her in a three-way. They actually tell her cause many times, but we have to catch them on the premises. I can put myself in her place to know the frustration of that going on, protecting your children, locking your windows, closing your doors. She changed the locks, but she still don't feel safe with this individual. So when I say the children, even though they're small, as they are in teenagers, 10, 11, 12, 13, the children, when they see this type of abuse going on, they can't comprehend as to why, and sometimes they become abusers themselves, and sometimes they go into deep, they go into deep depression. And I've seen that a lot. I'm blessed to say that I raised my 3 children, and though they didn't know and they found out now through a broadcast, they were like, Mom, why you never said anything? I said, no, I just wanted to protect you guys. But when my daughter saw it firsthand, to me as a mother, it was a scary thing for her to see her father holding, a butcher knife about to stab me, I don't know how many times, and herself trying to talk him down when he was drunk. And that still sits in my soul. The most vulnerable that I've noticed too is when a child is disabled. Sometimes they are subjected to abuse at the home. The father will physically not only hurt the mom, but also the children will be involved too. If they intervene, they get slapped and they get punched. Unfortunately, that happens. And it's sad. It's sad because the child grows scared and thinking a bunch of stuff, which I've seen in one of my mentors that it has happened where the child, which grew up to be a teenager, and he held so much of the beating from the dad and witnessing his mom getting beat. As he grown up, he always kept telling his mom, I'm going to kill him. When I get bigger, I'm going to kill him, and he's no longer going to hurt you. And this has happened, which is very sad. And he has stabbed his father over 35 times. And he went to jail over that, though they took in consideration his mental health status of the beatings that him and his mother throughout the years. They took that into consideration. That it was, domestic violence in the household, but still this young man is behind bars over killing, his father. And, something like that, you won't be, as a mother, you won't be able to process to know that your child was trying to protect you, but throughout his life, he was thinking, I'm going to kill him, I'm going to kill him, I'm going to kill him. The mother thought that was never going to happen, and it did. And it's, like I said, it's unfortunate, and there's stuff that has to be said and not shunned. And it does, traumatize a child through the years because he takes the beating, but there's a point that he comes to say, it doesn't hurt no more. He physically says it and says, it doesn't hurt no more. It doesn't hurt no more. This is going to go away, and sooner or later I'm going to hurt him. And it does, and it's a shame. I always say the laws have to be more stricter. As I'm mentoring this beautiful young lady, I see more and more the lack of help. As she reaches out to me, she says there's supposed to be more help for us. I'm doing the right thing, and I feel like backed up to the wall because the only thing I can do is try my best is to relocate her. I have told her change your phone number. Just for her to be safe because she's doing the right thing. But because that's taking a process, there comes into that thought, what you think if I take him back, maybe if I listen to him, if I do the right things and don't upset him, everything will go smoothly. You know, he loves the kids. He would never hurt the kids. We're not in, like I speak to her, I said, we're not in his mind. You know, we don't know what he's thinking, and that's what I tell her all the time. You don't know what he's thinking. Verbal can turn into physical, and then physical can turn into a fatality. I tell her, I say, and that's not to scare you, because I'm here to tell you the truth, because I lived it. I'm talking to you in maybe a couple of years that when this happened to me, I would not be speaking to you right now. As a domestic violence survivor, my 16-year-old had to intervene, and he had a knife. So she was like, oh, my God. And I was like, yeah, that's why I can speak to you and tell you how it is and what can happen. I pray every day for her that there is a solution to this problem, and I pray she doesn't go back to the person thinking that she will finally get some peace and trying to calm him down, which is not, you know, it's not the solution at all for me. Yeah, it's a sensitive subject when you mentor somebody. The signs that you see when a child is traumatized or stressed is sometimes the child, though he witnessed what he witnessed, he doesn't want the parents separating. So he fears the separations of the parent or the caregiver that is in that domestic dispute, constantly crying or screaming in the room, the lack of eating poorly or losing weight massively because of the situation, recurring nightmares at night, reliving what he sees on a day-to-day basis, which is awful. Is there medication for this? Yes. But I'm going to say a strong word right now. Though there's medication for this, the medication can resolve one problem, but it doesn't take away the eternal one that he feels on a daily basis. So I'm not against medication, but I say that the medication can numb one thing, but your mind, I always say, is a powerful thing, that it doesn't erase what you're going through. So, of course, there's medication. Can the child take it? Absolutely. While the mom's going through what she's going, she gets counseling and decides to stay with the abuser, of course. But it doesn't take the after effect of what you're going through on a day-to-day basis, whether you take medication or not. It's sad to know that we're losing, you know, women and men and youth to domestic violence. It really saddens me. And like I said, I'm just one person. There is a lack of resources out there. Though there is resources, but there's a lot of lack of resources. When I say that, is relocation, the individual getting served. I know cops can't be stationed at the premises like 24/7. They don't get paid enough for that. And it's sad. There has to be a change, absolutely, in that. And I'm seeing it firsthand. I always say that, you know, sometimes there's behavior issues that the child does arise. You know, what they see is what they do, and it's unfortunate. And sometimes they go to the school and they become bullies. You know, they become bullies. They become, well, if my dad or my mom is doing this, I'm not going to let nobody push over me. And in order to get their frustration and their feelings, you know, out, they do hurt, you know, classmates that they pick on, just for them to feel good, which is absolutely also wrong, because there's a problem there that's not being addressed. And then, you know, like I said, it comes to the point where the child is not being able to cope and clings to the streets. And that's where a bigger, huge problem starts, you know, adding on. So my thing is that the percentage, something that I saw also, 20% of the child that are abused are under the age of 8 years old. And something that I found so alarming is usually when it's not your child, it's actually a foster child that's at risk. Since that child is not yours, and it's someone else's, you have there's 10 times tendency of abusing that child, and that is absolutely very, very high. I thought more so blood related, but not blood related. It's a factor, and that took me for a loop. The risk is like double, and that's sad. And like I said, I've walked through the trenches, and I've seen children that go, which are not your children, they're foster children. They go to the school, long sleeves, black and blue. If they're beaten with a belt, you see the markings. Unless they go to the nurse, you see the markings on their back, on their butt, on their legs, but clothes hides everything. So that alarmed me a little when I researched that foster children are 10 times at risk of being in a domestic, violence dispute in a home when the child is not yours. So that's sad. So does anybody have any questions? We have shy people on today, huh? That's okay. So, chronologically, age of a child, 50% of abused children are younger than 3 years old. Like I said, 90% of the child who die from abuse are younger than 1 year old. That is absolutely very sad. Firstborn children are the most vulnerable. Low self-esteem, neglectful parents often neglect themselves and see themselves as the worthless person. When the person is abusing you and this person is saying that you're not worthy, you're nothing, they often look at their own child and start abusing them and being neglectful. Food-wise, hygiene-wise, that I can't explain. No matter what I went through, my children ate, my children were washed, my children were clean. I learned to turn like the other cheek when stuff was going on, and inside of me. I never had that aggression. I always looked at my kids that it was not their fault what I was going through, so there was no reason for me to suggest them to that trauma. I was not that type of mom. To read and see this stuff, I question as to why you would want to hurt your own child through what you're going through. And I always say there's a solution to everything. If you're going to stay with the individual, try to get counseling as to why you're still in a relationship where there's an outlet that you can leave with your child and live a better life, one that you are deserving of. When we don't get that type of help, the severity of hurting your child normally turns to fatality, to death. And then you go to jail, and you have to live with that awful burden that you killed your child because of what you was going through. So that's sad in itself. That's sad that our children have to go through that, and we don't get the necessary help that we need through counseling. I can say that, unfortunately, I never took counseling with everything I went through. I still go through the trenches of having, nightmares, reliving it. But I meditate, and I try to go about my day. Anything I went through, no one has to do with that at all. None of my friends, none of my kids, my grandbabies, my job. I have to go all the time with a smiley face, but I'm far from perfect. I can honestly say that you can forgive but not forget, and like I said, every day there's a high rise in domestic violence. Every day I see something different, a child being killed, a mother being killed, a youth being killed, shootings and stuff like that, and stabbing. The famous saying, if I can't have you, nobody can. We are not property of anybody in a relationship. I have to throw that out there. No one can control us. There is an outlet we can leave. If we don't leave, we know exactly what happens after the math. But I don't like hearing that saying, if I can't have you, no one can. No, you are not that person. That person is not your property. Absolutely not. And we have to learn a lot of self-respect. We have to learn our worth. I know it's not easy leaving a relationship like that. It's, they're very convincing. I'll never do it again. I'm sorry. I'll change. It'll last a couple of weeks. I call it the honeymoon stage. Then he goes back. If something at work happens, he comes to the home. He takes it out on the wife and the kids. If he's not satisfied with his own self, that's another excuse where he hurt her or the kids. So I call that the honeymoon stage when you stay in that relationship. And we can't. We can't. Or we give them an ultimatum, counseling. I can't do this no more if you want to stay together. If they've been, 25, 15 years and you think you can work it out, fine. If it's been less than that and you just can't handle it, walk away. We don't need to be in a relationship where love is not supposed to hurt. Love is beautiful. It's supposed to be a wonderful feeling. If that person is not for you, walk away. Life does not stop because you left that individual. It certainly doesn't. Financially, I can honestly say you will go through it, but that would prove what kind of a person, what kind of a woman you are to strive in the world. When it happened to me, I'm going to say in all honesty, I started thinking, what am I going to do? Am I going to be homeless? That's the first thing you're going to think. Am I going to be homeless with my kids? No. There's an outlet to that when you leave the relationship. I see it as this: either I stay and he kills me and I deal with it, or I just move forward and become the person I am. I became the person I am today because I'm not scared. I empower the women that are trying to come out and say, don't be scared. One way or another, we'll get through this, but life does not end because that relationship ends. We have wonderful women and wonderful men out there. We just got to know the red flags. Once you see something that you're dating somebody and you see the red flags, you are able to walk away from that as quickly as possible. If you choose to stay, I always say, that toxic relationship, you're going to like it. And you get used to it, and you will not walk away. But if you know that life is beautiful, step to the side, stay by yourself. I always say, there's no reason you can't stay by yourself. There's nothing shameful about that. I've known women that have been single for 20 years, and I questioned, I said, you never want to get married? No. I like eating alone. I like traveling alone. I like speaking to friends. But what I went through already, I don't want to go through again. Fear in getting into another relationship because they don't trust and they don't believe that that person is capable to treat them like the queen that they are. And that's well respected if you want to stay by yourself. Absolutely. You can't judge. You can't judge if somebody stays together. You can't judge if somebody decides to be by themselves. I always say to each his own. But we are the only ones that put our faith on the line and choose what we want in our lives. And I choose freedom, I choose safety, and I choose being able to know that I'm here alive and no longer in a toxic relationship. But like I said, if anyone chooses that, I just pray for them because 9 out of 10, some change and some don't. And I'll give the benefit of the doubt. I'm a firm believer of some that do, second chances, and I'm a firm believer that we have repeat offenders because they are out there. But I always say love is not supposed to hurt. And the main thing is we're supposed to look is for the protection of our children. Our children not to see stuff like that. Our children to be brought up where, they have to know that home is supposed to be a safe haven. And if it's not, you got to try to make it a safe haven. Communicate with your child by letting them know, your dad did this to me, okay, but that's not normal. He needs help. I don't understand why your father's doing that. If you decide to stay in a relationship, communicate all the time with your child so he doesn't become depressed, doesn't catch anxiety. But in the long run, 9 out of 10, we have to think about our children and their safety and their state of mind. Do you want to stay in a toxic relationship where it's going to damage your peace of mind and your child? Absolutely not. I would choose peace over anything. Does anybody have anything to say? Any opinion, any testimony, debate with me on anything I'm saying? No one? Okay. We'll continue. I'll have various questions down the road to see if someone would answer it. Would you stay in a relationship that's toxic? No one wants to answer that. I'll answer it. I wouldn't want to stay in a toxic relationship. One of the reasons, I love my peace of mind. I want to be my own person. I'm a firm believer, if it's not broken, don't fix it. We're not here to fix damaged men or damaged women. We're not here for that. In a relationship, we're not that person's father or we're not that person's mother. They have to choose to want to change. I'm a firm believer also that sometimes we have to move on. No matter what the person says, I want to stay with you. If you know what you're going through, you ask yourself, do you want to continue? Do you believe this person is going to change? I say no. The person doesn't change. Go ahead, sweetheart.
I say no.
You say no?
Yeah, I don't want to get beat up.
I understand that. Were you in a toxic relationship?
No, this is Miles.
How you doing, sweetheart? Welcome back. I hope you're feeling better.
Well, I didn't find out about, I know my baby mother was, but I didn't know until, like I tell you a while back, we got into an argument, and she thought I was going to hit her, and she started balling up. And I didn't find out until her sister told me all about that, but what made me mad about that was that the guy that did it got away with it, so.
Oh, so your wife was in a domestic violence relationship before you guys got together.
Yeah,
but you would.
Yeah, I didn't find out till years later after we had a baby and everything.
Wow. And what brought up that she curled up like a ball? If you don't mind me asking, if it was years later.
Yeah, because our baby, we got a daughter. She was 2. And during that time, I used to be a DJ.
Uh-huh.
And I came out the room, my daughter, she liked to climb up on things. So.
How old was your daughter?
She was 2.
Okay.
You know, she used to climb up on everything. So I always tell her you got to keep an eye on her. So one day I came out the room, she was on the wall unit. And, you know, it's kind of scared me because I thought she was going to fall. And then her mother came out the other room. And I yelled at her. I said, don't you see, I told you about watching it, and blah, blah, blah. And then I was upset that she was on the thing. She could have fell. And she would have hit the floor. We would have been in trouble. And then she started saying, you don't have to yell at me. Don't yell at me. I said, yell at me. I said, the girl to the father. And the next thing I know, she said, don't hit me. And I turned around. I went to go get her off the wall unit as I was yelling at her mother. I heard her say, don't hit me. And I turned around. I seen her on the floor in the corner, balled up.
And you was getting your daughter off the wall unit, and she was curled up like a ball.
Yeah. I didn't know that until I turned around.
Wow, and you just yelled at her.
Yeah, because my focus was that, you know, I'm going to get my daughter down.
Okay.
And I was at her mother. I was mad at the mother because I told her we got to keep an eye on our daughter because she likes to climb on things. And plus, we live on the 3rd floor. You know, we don't want her hanging around windows and all that because she's a climber. And then when I saw that, I just panicked and started yelling. And when she came out the room, she the first person I yelled at. So I was hurting her. Then after that, when I was turned around and went to get her, I'm trying to get her down because she's holding on to the equipment and stuff. And I'm just yelling, like, you know, not too loud after that because, you know, I didn't want the baby to get upset. So And I heard her say, "Don't hit me." I hit you. And that's when I turned around. I didn't see her standing there. But for a minute, I thought she left the room, and then I looked down. I kept hearing somebody say, "Don't hit me." And I looked down. I seen her on the floor in the corner.
How long y'all were married? How long y'all were married?
No, we wasn't married. We was dating.
Okay.
Me, her, and her sisters. It was about 5 years before that.
And that happened.
We were together like 5. Well, we knew each other for a while, but when I started dating her, I was in like 70, 76.
Okay.
She had a son. So we were just, communicating, and then we got together. And everything was fine. I thought everything was fine because I never argue. I don't like to argue with women anyway because I got 7 sisters, and I hear how they talk about arguing with their boyfriend. I'm like, damn, don't think you got headaches?
Mm-hmm.
So when that happened, I was telling her, get up. I said, what you doing down there? Get up. So like, get off the floor. I was like, get off the floor. Then her sister came in there. Her older sister came in the house.
Okay.
And I was like, she said, what's going on? I said, no. I told her what happened. She said, oh, okay. Then she just told me, look, I got this. I said, well, she said, I got this. Take the baby in the room. So I took her in the room. And then, I started getting curious because, why are they sending me in the room for? So when I came back out, her and her sister was sitting on the sofa, and she had her arm around her, telling her everything's going to be all right and this and that and that. I never understood it, but, 2 days later, her sister was in the house, so I asked her, what was that all about? And she told me what her sister went through. And I didn't like that.
I'm going to say, y'all were living together. She never sat down with you to actually tell you. I know she has trust in her sister, and her sister probably knew what she went through, but she never sat down with you to even, discuss it with you of what she went through?
No.
No?
During that time, we never got into an argument. We never got into a disagreement. Everything was fine until that night.
But she never told you, oh, can you sit here? I want to tell you why that happened to me, why I curled up like a ball. Never opened that line of communication with you?
Nah, her sister the one told me what happened. And then her sister went, then her sister left. She went by her mother's house. And they both came back. And then she told me what happened. And the fact is, I knew the guy.
Mhm.
I thought he was a cool dude.
Wow.
But she said she was afraid to tell me because I knew him, and she thought I'd beat him up or something. So I did want to try to punch his face in. But it just blew my mind that all that time we've been together, I didn't have a clue.
It only takes that one time because, like you just finished saying, the concern that you have with it. Well, it's terrible twos. They do climb into a lot of stuff and get into a lot of menace at that age. And, it took your daughter climbing up a wall unit for you to, maybe it wasn't, intentionally you raising your voice. You didn't need to because, like you just said, you have 7 sisters. Sometimes, that I call that trauma reaction. And Miles, I want to tell you, I'm glad you, transparent with that testimony, because till this day, I want to tell you, that doesn't go away. That doesn't go away. Till this day, if I hear an argument, I catch anxiety. If I hear somebody even scream, and they start, arguing, I twitch and I leave. For some apparent reason, I started crying. The situation has nothing to do with me, but I remove myself because I start thinking flashbacks. I can give you an incident. I walked into, my daughter she's young. She's 27, and I think my son-in-law is 24. And, sometimes they're married, though, and they'll argue and stuff like that. But she knows what I went through. She's spoken to him what I went through. And one time they really had a real rough argument. Like, you say this, I say that. And I happened to walk into that. I did a surprise visit to see my grandkids, and I happened to walk into that. And let me tell you something. I started, like, seeing where my grandbabies were at, to go in the room to see if they were okay, that they don't hear stuff like that. I put, like, the headset on my grandson to listen to the TV, and they were just, like, going at, not physical, but they were going at it in the kitchen. And I just looked at my daughter, waved to her, and I ran down the stairs and came back home. She actually called me. She was like, Mom, my apology. We had a misunderstanding. My son-in-law has a tendency of being absolutely loud. When I say loud, unfortunately, he has PTSD because he was deployed in Afghanistan for 9 months, and, he heard all those bombs, some trucks, all that stuff going on, all that shooting, machine guns. So he came back with PTSD, real bad, where he can't even celebrate the 4th of July because the fireworks just gives him bad anxiety. He has a little bit of anger management. He's gone to counseling for that. But because of how loud he was screaming, it just made me twitch. I left. I waved to my daughter. My daughter's like, Mom, and I just, like, kept it moving, came back home, had to take a shower, started crying. And my daughter called me, and she was like, Mom, I'm so sorry. We had a misunderstanding. You know how loud he gets. And I said, listen, as long as he don't put hands on you, I'm okay. It's just the way he yells. He has no control when y'all going to have an argument because you guys don't talk. Y'all yell. And that's not good for the babies to hear that. And it's not good for me to physically hear myself because we do, and I have to say, we do overcome domestic violence. We do overcome it. But unfortunately, there's a lot of stuff that we go through, and I've gone through. I'm very transparent, not embarrassed or ashamed to say it because I can't say, okay, I got out of that relationship and I'm 100% okay. No, it was 17 years. This man put me through a lot of hell through 17 years. If I was to hear his voice in the streets, I would just twitch and panic and, cross the street and keep it moving. Literally, I can't, I catch bad anxiety when I hear arguments. I really do. It triggers. That's the word I'm looking for. It triggers because you don't want to have that life again. I've been how your girlfriend's been sometimes. I've curled up like a ball in the shower, literally crying and meditating to God, help me. When I tell my testimony, some people think, okay, that's a strong woman up there. But when you are telling your testimony and you go back to describing what the individual did to you, as strong as you are, you still reliving what that person is doing to you. And when I come home, I know I did an amazing thing because I know through my testimony it'll help somebody that's going through it, or it'll help somebody that, hasn't gone through it but said, I heard this young lady, reach out to her, she can help you. But when I come home, it takes a toll on me for 2 days where I have a rough time going to sleep. Sometimes I've had to take sleeping pills, which I know it's not good, but I'm very transparent and honest. So when something happens to me, sometimes it gets so bad. On the first day, I had to take a sleeping pill so my mind relaxed and I can sleep through the night. I'll get up in the morning and I'll relive it still, and I have to meditate real bad, like, God, get this out of my mind. I know I did a good thing, but sometimes, and I'm not the only one. I'm not the only one that goes through something like that, but it triggers on a day-to-day basis because you can forgive. But absolutely no one can tell me they'll forget that they went through something like that. You can't. It's a part of you. It's something you can't erase with a marker. It's something you can't, have hypnosis and say, brainwash my head. Nah, unfortunately, you live through that every single day. Like I said, your girlfriend, If y'all broke up and she went into another relationship, if that individual screams, that's the reaction that he's going to see also, because I don't know if she ever got help. I don't know if she ever got help. And like I said, I'm not saying that counseling don't work. Counseling does work, but I always say the scars are there and those memories are there, but you never forget, but you forgive the individual. Sometimes I attack myself by telling myself, like, you know what, you already went through that. The past is the past. But unfortunately, you carry with you the rest of your life, and it does trigger, a lot of stuff. And I can relate, because when you first told me that, I imagine her on the floor, curled up like a ball. I can imagine, and I'm not even there. I can just imagine it and be like, I've been there. I know what you're feeling. And you're an awesome guy. I met you in person. You're an awesome person. I know that they probably, when you saw her like that, you felt some type of way. But I said at the beginning of my program, communication is an absolute key. And not to be judgmental. Like a poem I read, we can't judge. But she should have had the strength to sit with you and say, Miles, when you yelled up like that, this happened to me in the past with this individual, even though she was scared. Because when you tell your boyfriend or your husband you went through that, sometimes it unnerves the person. Like I said, I'm in a relationship when that person found out that this individual did that to me. He saw what type of person I am, sweet and stuff. He was like, why? I just asked myself why. I would never do that to you. I'm not an easy person. I try to test him sometimes, and he'll be like, oh, girl, if you want to argue, you by yourself on that. He'll play music and stuff, and he'll zoom me out until I calm down and turn around and be like, you calm down now? Can we talk? And that's something I didn't have. And when I see that structure in our relationship where he prefers to talk than to argue, you start changing. You start changing that avenue of your life. And that kind of heals you more and more to know that, I said at the beginning, you do got men out there, good men out there. I didn't believe that down the road because I was hateful. I was very bitter. And I said, I don't want no man near me because they're going to hurt me. How he hurt me, they're going to hurt me too. And that mindset changed completely. Because we do have good men and women out there. It changed completely, and I thank God. I thank God that the scars go away completely. No, they don't. I would be lying if I would be lying. Go ahead, sweetheart.
When they told me what happened, right?
Uh-huh.
It turned out the rest of her sister came along, and it was like a little family thing in the living room. So I'm sitting there with the baby, and they're explaining to me what happened, why she acted the way she did. And what bothered me was the most was that I had got up and walked out the room. I thought I was upset about what happened to her in the beginning, but it didn't. The first thing came to my mind is, we've been together over 6 years. When I first started dating you, you had your 4-year-old son. We got along, everything going fine. We have a daughter. And the first thing came to my mind, she actually thought I would hit her. And all that time we've been together, I never raised my hand at her. I never cursed at her. We did like family things together. But when they told me what happened, and that's the first thing that came to my head, that's why I got up and left. I told her when they asked when everything counted, I said, look, after all this time we went together, you actually thought I would put my hands on you. I never did. It made me feel like you didn't trust me. Like she thought I was capable of slapping her or something. But after all that time we've been together, I never did a thing to you. And then I find out this. And like I said, I knew this guy. And she knew I knew him. We used to see him in the street.
And how you classify him? Does you know him? What type of individual he looked at? Like he was capable?
No, he looked like a cool dude. We played sports together. We laughed, we joked on the street. But he always seemed nice to girls. But like they say, you never know what's going on through a person's mind. But I never knew he beat on women until they told me what happened to her. And then when I did find out, and then I ran into him, and he knew I knew something because the way I was looking at him when I was treating him. We almost got into a fight, but she stopped us because she was more afraid that I might get arrested because I wanted to hurt him bad.
Because of that situation?
Not only that, because, my mother, when we was kids grew up, we always was told, never put your hand on a woman. I mean, our uncles, my mother's the only girl. She had 5 brothers. And they used to always tell us, our father did too. By the time we were 7, they used to tell us that. Don't ever put your hand on a woman. We didn't understand why are we going to do that? Because, kids back then, you play with girls. We was always told, don't play with girls rough. You're stronger than them, you don't play rough with them because you can hurt them. And stuff like that. And that's all they kept, teaching us as we got older. They said, you don't do that because if you hit on a girl, what if somebody hit on your sister, what will you do? We said, we're going to kick his behind. So if you hit on a girl, don't you think his brother have a right to kick you behind? Yeah. I said, But they always kept driving it in their head. My one uncle, my mother's brothers, they look like identical twins too. So he would always tell us, if I find out you hit any woman, I'm going to find out the hand you hit her with, and I'm going to break it.
Now, can I ask you a question? After you finish. Go ahead, after you finish.
Yeah, because he always said, I will break your arm and beat you with it. Like, yeah, right. We kid, that's our uncle. But he had this look on his face like he was dead serious because when we did something wrong, he would whoop us with a stretching cord. He wasn't playing. And I was like, damn. And that was like during the days, we used to have the Ku Klux Klan used to live around the corner from us. And they always told us, even when we play in the playground, he always say, y'all on y'all way to school, recess, don't play rough with the girls. I'm like, why do they keep harping on that? And then as we got older, we started understanding. And when I got into an argument, the first time I got into an argument with a woman, I think I was like 16, 17. And it scared the hell out of me, too, because this girl, she was like really, saying some stuff that make you want to slap her.
Mm-hmm.
But, I balled up my hand started shaking. I just walked away from her. So I went in the house and told my mother, she was asking me what I was upset about. She said, you talking about that crazy girl so-and-so on the street? Yeah. Man, leave that lady alone. I said, I ain't doing nothing. She said she got mental issues, son. But the fact that it got me to the point that I wanted to slap this girl, when I told my mother that, she said, I know you ain't put your hands on. I said, no. She said, as long as you don't touch her.
And you know what, Miles? That's the question I was going to ask you because when I speak, I do, Q&As. And that's the question I was going to ask you. What would you do in a situation? And I've gotten various response that is going to blow your mind. But I want to hear your response to the question I'm going to ask you. But you nearly answered it in some stuff I heard you say. Now, if a woman, you're in a relationship and a woman comes at you, like she's your girlfriend or whatever, but you're not the type to put hands on her from what I heard from a previous relationship. But in a situation that she puts you in where you argue and you argue and you argue, and when you're arguing, it does turn physical. What would you do in a situation where she would put hands on you, and I'm talking about she slaps you, she punches you? Would you take it or would you react? And you can answer it as honest as possible.
Francesca.
Uh-huh.
In 1986, my sister got into a street fight with some girls. And this one girl, her name is Angel. She ended up living on top of us in 2001 and 2002, she ended up moving over top of us. And I remember now, in 86, that's the first time I ever hit a woman because she tried to sneak up behind my sister with a 2x4 and was going to hit her in the back of the head. So when I hit her, I didn't realize how hard I hit her. I hit her. She fell against the car and hit her head on the inside of the car tire thing. And when I looked at her, she started bleeding. You know, I ran. I thought I killed that girl. I ran home. And I didn't even go out the house for a whole day. And to this day, it still haunts me that I hit that girl that hard. And when I saw her years later, she was moving in our building. She remembers me. I was trying to I was like, you look familiar. She said, yeah, you the guy that punched me in my face. I was like, what? Yeah, on Carroll Street. And then I started remembering, I said, oh, snap. I said, yeah, you tried to hit my sister with a stick. She said, that's between girls. I said, no, you don't hit my sister with no stick like that. No, you ain't going to sneak up behind and probably kill her. He said, yeah, but you ain't had no, lady. I just walked away from her because he was talking stupid. I ain't going to let you hit my sister in the head with no stick. But to this day, I still remember that, and it kind of bothers me.
Because you're not that type of person.
Yeah, because I thought I killed somebody. You know, because when you hit somebody, they see their head hit and they start bleeding. Things change.
So you had, in layman's term, I could say, like some remorse of what you did.
To this day, I don't like to argue with women. That's why you see me, I mess with them all the time, pick and flirt with them like I do. But sometimes I'll be afraid that I'm going to get into an argument like, no, I don't want to. And if they get to a point where, you know, they start getting sarcastic with me, I leave it alone because I know me. And I don't want to argue with them. Then my sister always say, what's wrong with you? I say, nothing, because I know my sisters, they're jumping their face in a heartbeat. So I just get emotional on certain things. So.
Because you are a true man. You're a true man. That's what it is.
My mother always tells me I got a guilt complex.
Well, you know what? Your mother raised you right, and I commend you. I just want to thank you for your transparency tonight and being honest, because that question, when I ask that question to a man, you should see the reaction I get back, the answer I get back, and I'm going to tell you, you had at least remorse because you had your sister's back. Anybody would have done that. That's justifiable. Getting hit with, 2x4, that's not no joke. I've seen it. I live by the CCT projects, and I've seen stuff that they pick up and how they lay these they lay these people out. I'll be like, oh my God, is that person alive? But
yeah, I know that's right.
True, no, I've seen it. So yours is, I'm gonna say, I'm against violence. But when you see something like that that's being done to one of your siblings, I always say kudos. You have to jump in before it gets, even more worse. But I've spoken in different cities, and I had asked a question. I'm always curious to get the answer. And I asked a man in the audience that same question I asked you, and I said, any man that's sitting here right now with no judgmental, you can say yes, you could say no, and why. And I asked a man, and he got up, and I said, will you hit your girlfriend if she's hitting on you? And you know what he said to me? The hell I will, because if she's hitting me, I'm gonna pick. And I liked it that he was very honest. And people were like, oh my God. And I said, no, wait a minute. I asked a question, and I said with no judgmental. I wanted to know, because you have men that will not get hit by a woman if you're arguing and it's a verbal altercation. The man have a tendency of saying, well, I'm not going to allow her to slap me even though we're in our homes. I'm not going to allow her to slap me. I'm going to punch her back. Whether it's not hard, whether however he does it. But he told me if she puts hands on me, I'm going to put them back, because I'm not just going to stand there and allow her to hit me. And I respected that he said that. Another man stood up and he said, I'll just take it, until whatever steam she's blowing off of her, and then speak to her later like, listen, what you just did, I'm not going to put hands on you, but this is not how I want to live. I want to talk about that situation so it don't happen again. That was another individual in the audience that said he would have taken it because he's not the type, like you just said, my mother raised me not to put my hands on a woman. Now, if she's going through something that day and she's testing me, I'm not going to hit her back. So I got a lot of ooh, ah in the audience, and I said, nope, we can't do that, no judgmental, because I want to hear if a man will strike a woman back. Yes, they will, because they feel some type of way of the anger, and macho like, I'm not going to stand there and take it. I'm going to hit her back. So I respect it in the audience, that two were bold enough to say, I took it, and no, I didn't take it. And, they're still together. He was, ironically, I'm still in a relationship. I'm married to my wife for, I think he told me 25 years. The other one, I think, was in a 7-year relationship with the girlfriend. And there were kids involved and stuff like that. And he said that everything has a solution. The communication was always, there was something behind why she did this, why she did that. And I liked it that they, that they were honest and answered that question. Sometimes I get, I'm going to punch her back because I'm not just going to stand there and let her hit me. Who she thinks she is, she's going to feel that whenever we argue, she's going to get it back from me too. Is that the solution? Absolutely not. Putting hands on each other? Absolutely not. That you stay together? Amen, hallelujah. Stuff works itself out. But I was very taken for the honesty that they said yes, no, why not? I stay there and take it. Some people don't and some people do. So a lot of questions were asked of me of why did I stay so long? A lady was like, why would you take all that abuse that he did to you? And I said, listen, not to be disrespectful, I'm here for it all. Good or bad, whatever questions that's going to be asked of me. But I told him, I said, I stayed for my children and I stayed for the lack of support because family members thought I was the problem. Family members on his side was like, nah, he's not like that. Communicate, talk. I was trying, but I couldn't do it no more. And I said, and I stayed because he always threatened to hurt my children. And before he hurt my children, I'd rather have him hurt me first. And I shunned them from all of this. They just found out when they're grown now. They found out now. And before I even did a podcast to talk about the domestic violence, I had to have a conversation with them on the phone and say, I'm about to do something that you guys don't know about, and I want your permission. I'm going to give you descriptions of what this individual did to me. I didn't go into graphics, but it's going to come out, and it's going to help me and help others. My son was, go ahead, Ma. My daughter was like, okay. She was like with the okay. But I would never have done that if I ain't had their approval. If they told me no, that's it. I'm not going to tell my testimony because my thing is I don't ever want to hurt them or anything that I do reflect on them as they're, coming up at their age and exploring. She's married. My son is single. I don't want to never put something on them that I'm going to feel hurt by it. So when they gave me their approval, and they actually heard the podcast, they were absolutely astonished of what I went through. And to hear my son say, you are a wonderful mother and a wonderful person in the community, and for you to have went through all that and us not see it, I admire you. So when he said that to me, absolutely, I cried. And he was like, Mommy, why did you never... I said, because he said this. I can tell you now because you're grown, because he said this and this and this, and I was scared. And before he even hurt you guys, I would have took everything in this world. But I would not want y'all affected by it, so I took it. Is it something normal? Absolutely not. Do I want that for you guys? Absolutely not. Learn through what I went through what a relationship is. My son, who is 30 years old, would never, ever in his life put his hand on a woman, ever. And would I ever allow it, a woman putting hands on my son? No. I know exactly what I brought up in this world. And he is a keeper. My daughter, which is, I would say she's in a wonderful relationship. They have their odds and evens, but they still get along. There is a level of respect there. You know, he needs a little help in his avenue, but he's working on it. But he always told me, we can argue, but I would never, ever put my hands on your daughter. Never. And the fact that you went through it, I would never want a problem with you, period, he told me. I was like, you don't want to go there, so trust me. Y'all can argue, but don't never put your hands on my daughter. I was like, because then it would be wicked on my end what I'm going to do. But that's the respect we have for each other. And I always say communication is such a key. I don't care how old my kids are. I am involved in their lives. I always hear, you know, things and see things, and I'll be like, listen, I don't want to get involved, but did you guys speak? What led to that argument? Try to fix that. Never let it get physical. I understand that nothing's perfect. I give my little 2 cents, but asking them first, can I do it? Because I want them to learn on their own, but knowing that the physical is a no-no. Physical is a no-no. So I always say communication is such a key. I really emphasize that. And like I said, I respect your transparency tonight. I just love you when you come up here and, you know, you tell your testimony, you tell it like it is with, you know, all honesty. But we have men out there that, you know, have this power trip where you clean, you cook, you can't leave the house. If you work, you get off at 5, you better make sure you're home at 5, cooking my dinner. We still have that. I still see it. You know, I still see it. And I just question and be like, why did you tolerate him talking to you like that? And he was like, I'm so used to it. As long as he doesn't physically hurt me, the verbal, I just throw it up in the air and ignore it. Sometimes there's women in those type of relationships that don't want to switch men. They tell me, I don't want to be in another relationship. It's not so bad. It's not physical. It's just verbal. And sometimes they'll be like, you know, sweetheart, I had a bad day. I'm sorry. So, you know, that's manageable, you know, at least if there's certain communication. But we have women that will stay in a relationship that's verbal because they don't want to start over again with someone else. And I respect that. But sometimes I put my 2 cents in, Miles, and I'll be like, you can tolerate that every day? I don't think I could hear that every day. I prefer in my life, you know, peace. I don't like hearing arguments. I avoid myself and remove myself from that situation because there has to be a level of respect. And we have a lot of marriages out there that I know somebody that just celebrated 50 years. And I asked the person, how did you last so long? Was there ever arguments? Did y'all ever break up? She said, no. We just tolerated each other. I respected his space. He respects mine. I'm acting in the community. He's a homebody. And they just celebrated 2 weeks ago, 50 years. And I said, wow, 50 years is a huge milestone. And my kudos, you know, my hat goes off to you. But she said it wasn't perfect. There was a lot of snags in the marriage, but they worked together. They had 16 children. All of them are boys. And all of them, except for one, got married. But that's wonderful. You know, there's a lot of transparency in that when you see a matrimony that you ask. I'm nosy. If you lasted 34 years, you got to tell me. Through the 34 years, how was it? Any arguments? Any cheating? And they tell me we had, you know, up and downs, but we stayed together. But they'll tell me, Francesca, I stayed in my marriage because I don't want to start all over again. And I was like, wow. Good evening.
How are you today?
I'm good. Blessed, happy.
I'm sorry my voice sounds a little cracky, but I haven't been feeling well. I was listening to you. You know something? I personally think I've never gotten married, but after we start putting hands together, then there's a problem because we have lost respect. And when you lose respect, you're going to continue doing it. So if we put hands once, we got to cut it out because that's when the domestic violence starts. And I was listening to you, what you were telling Miles. If a woman puts your hands, it's hard to hold yourself back. You should, but your natural reaction is going to be to hit her back. I'm not saying you should, I'm not saying, but that's your natural reaction. That's like if you come to me and you put my hands on me, oh, listen, wait a minute. I shouldn't put my hands on you. But I can't just go like, okay, you put my hands on me and I'm going to lay myself back. It's impossible. Because my natural reaction as a human being is, I got to go. And if you hit me once, I'm going to continue letting you hit me? Oh, no. Something not. I personally think something not right. And what are your kids going to see? Your kids are going to see mommy and daddy hitting each other? And come on, nobody tell me. Nah, my kids don't know what problems we have at home. Not baloney. That's baloney. Because kids do know. Kids know when mommy and daddy are fighting. And the first sign is they don't talk to each other. That's the first sign. When you see mommy and daddy walking and you see that they don't talk to each other, something not right. You start smelling it. You start smelling. And that also what you were talking about, we've been together for 15 years and everything has been cute. Nah, I don't believe that either. There had to be some point, a little fight. Or sooner or later, there's going to be a fight. Because it can't happen that you're going to tell me and you, we have lived ever beautiful, happily ever after, and there's never been an argument. Oh, that's impossible. That's impossible. How could that be?
Absolutely no. No, absolutely. And you know what, David, I hope you feel better. And I want to tell you, absolutely, thank you, too, for being transparent. Because sometimes, like you just said, a natural reaction when a woman is hitting you, you're going to react back. That you want to do that? Absolutely not. But it's a natural reaction. And I always say it's something that you can't avoid. And I like that something that you said right behind that once they do it once, they'll continue to keep doing it, and it's going to be a cycle over and over and over, and that's when you have to figure out, is it worth it? Do I walk away? Now, for the relationship that I said that was 50 years, absolutely, I interviewed the lady, and she told me, there was ups and downs. There was a lot of stuff, in the marriage, but as the years went by, that's who she decided to stay with because she did not want to enter another relationship and start over. In the relationship, the dad has 16 boys. All are married except for one, for whatever reason. Still lives with her and, and helps her out and stuff like that. But I told her there was never, little altercations. She was like, there was some. But she honestly told me in the 50 years, which I got to meet her husband, lovely man, church-bound and stuff. But she said it was always little arguments here and there, little disagreements, but never have he ever put his hands on her ever. And she's worse than me. She's out there in the community doing, she has 3 organizations here and there, and he just dealt with her outings and stuff like that. And he was more of a church and homebound person. But very strict, but never was. She said, I would be lying to you if I said it was physical. Never physical, because he was brought up in a church setting, and Sundays was he never missed church. Whether she didn't go, he went. So there was that structure in the household, but I literally told her, though there was never physical altercations in the relationship. We're talking about 50 years. This is a person you're seeing day in and day out. One day there's going to be a thing where that person will bother you just for whatever reason because of the length of the years. And she said, no, little ups and downs and stuff like that with the kids, but never had he physically touched me.
But that's the first problem then. The first problem is you're at church and I'm at somewhere else. At any little certain point, that's going to become an issue. Because
yes, down the road.
I'm going to feel like, wait, I'm at church, you're here, how does that work? And people are going to ask, where's so-and-so? Oh, no, she's somewhere else. Yo, you have a wife? I never met her. Come on. Oh, listen, service finished at 11. Were you at church? Why'd you come so late? You was at church. I was somewhere else. At a certain point, there's going to be an issue. It's not going to be. It's not going to be a tree with all flowers. That's impossible.
No.
I've never got. I've never gotten married, but when I was growing up, I was with the adults, learning about life. And a lot of little stupid married issues are for little stupid things, and that's why they don't last. For little dummy things that could be fixed. But today and age, we don't sustain much as we used to.
Let me step in a little bit of the religion. I can testify a little on my second marriage. I have faith in God. I do visit churches when I'm invited. I do go. I do tell people, yes, I'll go. That I go every Sunday. I gotta plead the fifth there. Absolutely not. Not because I don't want to. It's because my hectic schedule doesn't allow me. But I do set aside, if someone invites me, I do clean my schedule and I go to see if it's, an event or something, or they're bringing a special person from somewhere, and I do take out the time and sit. Now, the second marriage, I have to put it out there, he was Christian. He was very into the Bible, like slept that night with it in his hand, reading a verse before he went to sleep, got up. In the household, which my daughter was there was no cursing. He corrected her all the time, like, no, I'm not your father. I don't know if you see me as your stepfather, but I would like to tell you, let's try to restrain from cursing. And he changed that in her. He really changed that he invoked God into our household. I never interfered in that. Now, my outings, because I was in a radio station, I was in the community events and stuff like that, and he didn't like being involved in that. The more I was away from the home, though he was a very calm, resilient man and church-going, there was at times that he would sit with me and be like, okay, I want to spend time with my wife. I understand this is what you like doing and you're active, but you're coming more and more. And he knew where I was at, because I would always say I'm at a gala. It doesn't finish till 10 or 11, and I would walk in the house like that. And that was my cycle, sometimes 6 days out of a week. Like, we really had Sundays, and Sundays was his church. I had to wait till he finished. We went to the movies or something like that. But it interfered a lot, because he would be like, can you not go this day? I want to just sit and watch, TV with you, hold hands with you. And I would meet him halfway. Though I would get upset, I'm going to tell you. I would get upset and be like, I don't want to sit, you're my husband and everything, but I don't want to sit in front of the TV, because I wanted to go here to this event, and he didn't like participating. He would say, I will go to one, but I'm not going to go to all of them with you, like 7 days or 6 days out of the week. So we try to compromise, because he was more religious and I was not. I was like, when he met me, I was very active. And I said, you don't know what you're getting into. I'm like, this. But I compromised with him. We communicate. So though I didn't like not going to a certain event because I had to stay home and spend time with him, was it a selfish act on my part? Absolutely. Because he was a totally different person. He physically wanted me in the home, not to keep me homebound, but I was more out there than in the home. And that kind of like, despite the fact he was very religious, he tried to retain that anger by always praying to God and just saying, may I speak to you? You're going, to these events, and I respect it because you do this, but can you spend more time, at least once or twice, at home? Though I did it, in my selfish ways, I was always like, but I want to go there. And I don't like, in my head, I would say, I want to go there, and I don't like the fact they're stopping me. But that didn't start an argument, but I would selfishly sit, and I'm being transparent and honest, I would sit and spend time with him, but then I would be like, I wanted to be there, and I'm here.
I want to sacrifice myself.
Yeah, so it came to a compromise, because it's not what I had before, is what I had now was totally different, and I had to deal with him trying to implicate church, like, I want you to come a Sunday, and I'm like, my beliefs are different. God for me is like everywhere, and you can go to church, it's okay. And one time I went, and let me tell you something, the lady just like did like this little cross on me and was like, for many years I've been wanting this woman to come up in my church just to visit. She never has time. I understand and respect that. And I enjoyed it. But was it for me every Sunday? I got to be very transparent. I love God. My faith is big, but it wasn't for me. My life was more of going, to exceed another level in different things, and I let him go. And I did one time. I went with him, and I said, I'll go with you, okay? So there's not a problem, not an issue. I'll get dressed and go. But it wasn't for me. I told him, you cannot implicate something every Sunday for me because it's not. I was very honest to him, and I said, it's not something for me. I respect you like it. I'm not going to stop you from going. But if I had to go here with him to an event, you can see what I was going to choose. It was going to be the event. You go to church and I'll go to the event. But I compromised with him. But it was very complicated, though he passed away in 2016. If we would have lasted many, many years, that would have been like a big issue in our relationship, is the outings to the events and stuff, the radio station, the modeling, all that physically inside, he retained it, and it upset him. But he didn't show it by arguing with me. He just accepted it. But I compromised.
May I ask you a question?
Yes.
What type of house did he have when he was little?
What type of what?
House did he have when he was little?
What type of house?
Yes, because that has a lot to do also. How did his parents live together? Did they have a good house, or was it an arguing house, or how was it?
No, it was.
That has a lot to do also.
He comes from, two passed away, but speaking in that format, in that time, he comes from 16 brothers, which they all go to church, and they're all married to women that go to church. His parents were married for 39 years, so the structure was built on Christianity. So it was like, pray over the food, pray when you go to sleep, pray when they went to school. So I got to meet his mother, and that was the structure that I saw. Like, I have to put this out there. I had a little embarrassment when I went to DR and met her. When they went to all eat, I went and picked up my fork and started eating. She looked at me like, and I got to throw that one out there. It's a little funny, but not funny, but it is a little funny because that's when I got to see their faith, how bad it was. I mean, like, physically how bad it was in the house for that, like, their beliefs, which is not bad. I picked up the fork and I started eating, and all of them started looking at me. The brother, the wife, the mother, like, we prayed before we started to eat. So I put my fork down, and we prayed over the food. That I do it now? Yes, absolutely. But that's how he was brought up. There was no arguments, and none of the relationship of the brothers, which I met each and one of them, it was a very good, like, Little House on the Prairie. You can't make that up. It was like Little House on the Prairie.
Can I say something?
Yes, you can. Go ahead.
Francesca?
Yes?
This is Adrian. I just came on, and I don't know.
Hi, sweetheart.
Is the topic, is this what the whole topic is about? This is what y'all got off on the side? Because I want to comment.
No, go ahead. You can comment on it. We're talking about relationships.
Okay. Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you said that was your last marriage. Or just one of them. But
yes, it was.
When people come together, it's important that they understand each other's religion and each other's style of living, for lack of a better word, because you two, it seemed like it kind of worked for several years, had completely different styles of living, and that's been my problem. I like to go to church, but I don't consider myself religious. I like the fellowship. I like the people in the church. Most of the time, like my past pastor, I don't even like the pastor. I sit in church and I'm like kind of rolling my eyes in the air when he's talking. I'm like, shut up, but I love the fellowship of the people around me. And I've always, for the last 20 years, I've lived alone. I've kind of isolated myself, and church was what I had for my socialization. And I loved it because it felt good. Me getting closer to God felt good for me. And I take offense because I've had people say to me several times, "Oh, you go to that church because you like your pastor." I don't like my pastor. I never go to church for the pastor. The pastor is not God, and to me, and he's not. But I give my life to the Holy Spirit, not to the church. So I'm
Amen.
still busy. I'm out. I do my plays, and they may not see me every Sunday, but you're going to see me at least twice a month. And I'm dedicated to the church. I volunteer with the church. I do missionary work. But that some people have that mentality that if you're going to be a Christian, you got to be in church every day. That has nothing to do with being a Christian. Being a Christian is your heart, not in what you do. There are people that do what I do. They volunteer a lot. They feed the homeless, but they're not Christians because in every other aspect of their life, they're cussing, they're stealing, they're using drugs, they're doing all kinds of things, and going to church does not make you a Christian. It's how you live your life.
And continue, Adrian, because I'm going to tell you something that happened after he passed. I'll tell you so you'll see. It's not funny, but what you're saying, you're going to see what powerful word I'm going to tell you after he passed, what happened. What we do when someone dies, what they don't like if you do it. Well, you'll see, but continue.
Yeah, but that's my point. It's how you live your life. And it bothers me because I don't judge. It took me a minute because I heard going in church, I heard other people doing it, so I started doing it. And I said, wait a minute, that's not right. People have a right to choose what they believe and follow who they want to follow, And that's when I did studies. I studied cults, I studied all kinds of things, and just to see the other side, But, people have to be careful not to let other people tell them how to worship and who to worship. And
absolutely.
Because your Holy Spirit will send you in the right direction. What's for you is for you.
Absolutely. Amen. And I'm going to tell you something, Adrian. When my husband passed, I had the option of burying him here. Instead, I buried him in DR because his mom didn't see him for 13 years. Our belief here, my belief is that you cry when the person passed on. And, of course, I loved him very much. When I got there, the area where he lived at, where the house is at, where the mother lives, they're all connected. Like when I say they're all connected, each neighbors know each other. Each neighbor knows each other. And this is what happened. I was on the balcony of the house, and I was crying. And the person, some church people came, and they looked at me. They knew I was his wife. They looked at me, and they were like, that's not good because he passed on, and our beliefs is not that. So with that being said, in their beliefs is when someone passed on, you do not mourn. You do not cry. And I had a problem with that because I told his sister-in-law, listen, I grieve in my way. You guys can grieve in your way. Right. My grieving is letting out the grief by crying. I don't appreciate, and I respect everybody that's coming here, walking with the Bible and stuff like that, and their beliefs is that when someone passes on, that's it. They move on, you pray, they do a novena, that's 9 days and stuff like that. But my grief was letting it out is knowing that you're no longer coming back, and I was crying. And when I was on the balcony and they passed, like about 5 churchgoers that know the mom, they were like, he's at peace, he moved on, but we don't cry. And I was like, oh.
That doesn't make sense to me.
It doesn't.
Somebody said that to me, but I said, we're not crying because he died. We know he's going to heaven. We're crying because I miss him. That's me. You're telling me how I'm supposed to feel.
Exactly.
And it was one of my relatives. I'm like, how dare you try to tell me how I'm supposed to feel? What am I supposed to be? Happy? I'm not happy. I would be lying.
Exactly.
So you can't tell me, we believe. Are you speaking for everybody?
Exactly. And when you said that, how you go to church and you was transparent saying you ain't like the pastor. When I went to bury him, it was on the second day I was there, and I was like totally in disbelief, like I couldn't believe what was going on, trying to process the whole thing, and I was like constantly crying on the balcony. And when they passed, they looked up and they were like, he passed on, but we don't do that. And I went right inside and I said, listen, I don't care how many people come up in here and they pray, I'm going to respect that. But me, I'm going to mourn how I mourn in the States. And this is how I mourn. If someone passes on that you truly love, you are going to express it by crying. I'm not going to have somebody tell me that, that's not a good thing, because I respect your belief, but you got to respect mine. So the whole time I was crying hysterically until I came back to the States. But that's how profound is their religion. That's how profound their faith is. No one cried. No one absolutely cried the day of the viewing, which was 2 days, and no one absolutely cried at the burial. It was just completely me, and it had to be respected, because you mourn your way, I mourn my way, and I respect. I read the Bible. I know the verses. I've gone to churches and visit, but how you want to mourn, I'm going to respect it. But how I'm going to mourn, you got to respect it.
Like I said, I studied cult, and that sounds more like a cult. When somebody tells you how to feel and how to react, that's somebody controlling you. That has nothing to do with the family or the belief system. That's controlling you.
And it don't stop there, Adrienne. It doesn't stop there, because when I came back to the state, they all had my number. We have, they all have my WhatsApp. Still, I'm affiliated by saying hi and bye to the church he was affiliated here. And sometimes I'll bump into one of them, like, we're still waiting for you. Louis passed on, but we would like you to visit. But in all honesty, I'm very truthful. I found it toxic, because I said, listen, you're not going to draw me into something that when I was with him, he tried, but he respected the fact that I said, no, I'll visit one time, but that's it. When I say something is not for me, it's not for me. When I came here to the States, I bumped into a couple of them, like, we're waiting for you, the church is open. I found it a little toxic for me for what I experienced down there. And up here, it was like you had to go every Sunday, and it was like a 4 or 5 hour thing that I sat through. And I said it literally for me, like, what's not for me is not for me. And I said, listen, I respect that. Thank you. One day I'll visit. It's been 7 years now, and I haven't gone back. But that's exactly how it was, and I got them in my Facebook, and they were like, we're still waiting for you and stuff like that. God bless you and everything. But when I always say, when something's not for you, it's not for you. You can't draw me to something that it's not my, it's not my religion. I respected it that's what he followed. But it wasn't for me. And I was very transparent and honest with him when we got together and we got married. And I said, listen, I respect you go here. It's okay. One day I can visit to make you happy, but it's not going to be in every Sunday thing. And when he passed on, they thought I was going to continue. It was like, oh, nah, because it's not, it wasn't for me. And I was very honest, and they respected it. It got to the point that I had to talk to Millie and say, listen, I can come there one day and say, hello, how everybody's doing. I'm that type of person. But if it's not for me, you got to respect it. So it got like to the point that it was very overwhelming, and I would always think like, okay, what were you, in this church, how was it really was, the involvement. So when David asked me how the structure was in the home, I did like a little boo-boo starting to eat, because the culture here, some people do pray, some people don't. And when I did that, they all looked at me. It was like 16 heads at the table, like, okay, what's up with this woman? What's up with this woman? She started eating, and one looked over to me like, we pray before we start. Oh, my bad. And I put my fork down, and I went along with it, and that was every day till I was there. And let me tell you something. I was ready to come back because I was like, okay, this is too much for me because my states is a little different to the way they, like, the structure was very, very, like, God was everywhere there. Like, God bless you here, God bless you there in Spanish. And and like I said, Adrian, I respected that. I embraced that part of him, but you couldn't inflict it on me. We did have our conversation on that, and he really respected it. But I saw it like too overwhelming and too drawing. Like, okay, you can't get me to go in something I don't want. I don't want to be involved in. I'll follow him in anything except for that.
That's if somebody describes a cult. That's how they work. They overwhelm a person, and when they get in, and all of a sudden they can't get out of it. But it's that's interesting. But it's interesting that you had a relationship like that with somebody who was willing to. That person was really in love.
Yeah, because Adrian, let me tell you something. He was not about drinking. He was not about drinking. He was not about clubbing. He was not about walking into, some of these events are done in a club setting. He was not into that or drinking at all. None of that. Like, if I did it, he would be like, don't pass 2 drinks, please. And I respected that. I respected that boundaries. Now, if I wasn't with him, it was another different story, not disrespecting him, but it was just my way of living. And we managed to, how would I say, we managed to respect each other's spaces because he knew what he was getting into when when we got married. He knew, and it was something that he had to literally try to tolerate because I'm not changing you. You can't change me. That's how you met me, and that's how I met you. So when people saw that, they were like, how is that going to work? Because I'm going to say it. People usually say he's a holy roly, and she's an active woman, like out and about. So it wasn't easy. But the communication was there. This is what I do, and this is what you can do. But it wasn't easy. He didn't like me drinking. I want to put it out there. He did not want me to not pick up a wine or nothing. It was water or juice, and I'm like, listen, I'm going to socialize. I'm going to have 1 drink or 2. I'm sorry, I'm not an alcoholic, but I'm going to have 1 drink or 2. But that goes against, his religion. But he had to respect that. You are you. I am I. As long as you don't carry me out of the gala or wherever we were at, you're not carrying me in your arms because I'm not that type of person. But the communication and that, like you just said, he loved me that much that he accepted that lifestyle of mine. Like, I respected your religion, but it wasn't something easy. I got to put it out there. It wasn't something easy, but there was no fighting, no arguing, like bashing my drink to the side. He never did that. He would just communicate with me home and be like, okay, I went with you to this. I see what you do. But please, when you go out there, just 1 or 2 drinks. I said, I never come home drunk. Never come home drunk. But if I drink a 3rd or a 4th, I'm cool. But that's what I had to deal with. So, I can relate when I see Mrs. You laugh, David, and I'm very transparent and honest because, I don't like being fake. I say it how it is. That's how the communication was.
That's like that old joke, the guy that says, I don't get drunk. My friend used to always say, you always come home drunk. He says, no, I don't come home drunk. I drink, I get drunk. No, my drinking is not a problem. I drink, I get drunk, I pass out. No problem.
Yeah. You needed to say something, David.
You know what? Something I've always liked about you, you're very honest. I like you that. I like that from you. You're very honest. You're very open. You speak your mind. You speak your heart. You're not disrespectful. And I could relate to you. Damn, somebody dies, I cry. Shoot, a lady just passed away Sunday, and I'm not going to say I've cried, but I'll be like, damn, man, this lady was so young. What happened to what's her son going to do? Listen, I've cried. To tell you the truth, I don't even like going to funerals. If you see me at a funeral, it's because somebody special died.
Yeah,
there's some type of connection. But I'm not going to just anybody's random funeral. No, sorry.
No, absolutely. Like I said, Adrian said it. She don't know how that worked out, but I tried and I managed. And like I said, I'm very honest. In any relationship, I would be honest and put the cards up there. But be very mindful. No, you have to be, because if I was very, like, back in the days, combative with him, I would have been like, who are you talking to, thinking I'm a grown-ass woman? You in your religion, I'm leaving you alone with that, but you're not going to tell me not to do this and not to do that. It was none of that. There was always, like, if there's something that bothered him, he waited. Not the same day, but the next day he would be like, oh, I want to talk to you about something that bothered me. Okay, let's go. And he would dialogue with me, and I said, okay, that bothers you? All right. I will limit it a little, but you can't completely take it away from me, because that's what I like doing. But that's what I liked about him. He dialogued not the same day, because he calculated how he was going to come at me to discuss, and he would usually say, no screaming, no nothing. I just want to tell you this, and I want to know how you feel. And we came to a compromise. I said, okay, I'll do less of that, and, I'll do more of this with you. So there was a compromise, but I understood in the relationship he tried to do, a lot of changes in the home, which I respected. My daughter changed a lot from the profanity in the home, because that was something he wasn't accustomed to, and that's the word I'm going to use. In the household, no one curses. When I went down there, I saw it was like, I can describe it like Little House on the Prairie, and that's exactly what it was. And I was like, okay, well, we're on my end. There's not an argument here. There's not, no differences or nothing. Everybody was a hi, bye, how you doing? I'm cooking this. Come over and bring some. That's the setting I saw. The setting that normally you don't see here. So I was like, oh, wow, he's a solid, cool guy and stuff. But when I saw that side that he was very, very religious and adamant on that, I said, that's going to be, like, in my head, a problem, because I like to have fun. I like to dress. The dressing was very conservative. It was nothing crazy. But I was, like, around a lot of people, and that kind of, like, bothered him a lot. So I had to be very communicative of what I represent, of what I did in the community, for him to understand why certain people were around me, in that religious factor. They don't like their women being touched by a man or taking a picture close-knit. So there was a lot of that stuff that happened, and he would be like, you had to take a picture with that guy, that he had to put his hand around your waist and stuff and pull you a little. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm in the radio station. And that stuff happens, but he wasn't, like, putting hands on me any elsewhere, and I respected you. So there was a lot of stuff that he had to tolerate in my world, I say, that wasn't with his beliefs. But it worked out, and like I said, short-lived. He passed away because God needed him. He passed away, and I accepted that. But he was very solid and very, very different. But it was a challenge for me. It was a new experience to see that world, and they were trying to, like, pull me into it, and I was like, no, I'm like wild loose, like in a cage. So my peoples, my kings and queens, I always get sad when I have to log off, because our conversation gets so good when we talk about relationship and transparency. But I'll see you guys. Adrian, I do have to, if you're available tomorrow, I would like to call you. I would like to speak to you about something tomorrow. But if you guys are not doing nothing this evening, please stay for John Monroe at 8 o'clock for Vision Care. We all need to get, insight on our vision. Sometimes when we're texting and messing around with the computer and stuff, our eyesight, goes, from 20 to 30 to 10. So let John Monroe enlighten you with Vision Care at 8 o'clock. And I'll see you guys next Wednesday with another topic. It's been real. You have a good evening, a good night. And since we're not going to see each other this weekend, have a wonderful weekend and a safe one, too.
Okay. And you can call me anytime.
I sure will.
Tomorrow morning good?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be calling you in the morning.
Okay.
All right, sweethearts. My kings and queens, I'll see you next week.
You have a blessed night. All right, bye.
You too, sweetheart. Bye-bye.